Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Watch how this works. Sex is in the air. This is the most sex-crazed society the world has ever seen. There has never been a more sex-crazed society on Earth, so far as I can tell. Being a historian, I've never seen anything like this. I think even Rome, when it fell, was not as disgustingly degenerate as America is today. But, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is an old story. We know that Hollywood was built on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But there's one other element that Hollywood was built on, which is violence. I mean, without violence, there would be no Hollywood. And without us as the audience for this violence and the sex, there would be nothing. You see, we all love mob stories. And frankly, it's hard to admit it, but America is fascinated with gangsters. Whether it was Marlon Brando in The Godfather or James Gandolfini in The Sopranos as Tony Soprano, or it was Al Pacino playing a mobster, or it was the other fellow whose name I really do forget for the moment. I'm blocking it out right now. You know, the one who's always wanting to punch Bush in the face. I don't know his name. I forgot it. I used to like him as an actor. But we all loved him. I know, I was kidding. The other guy. But the thing is that universally true that people somehow are attracted to movies about gangsters. And the question is why? And it's not about the money, it's about the freedoms that we see gangsters enjoying. They seem much freer than the average man. And they also seem to get vengeance more readily than the average man. We are all constrained in our vengeance. We all know if we lift a finger against anyone, the law comes down on us like a ton of bricks. And yet there are times that we wish to God we knew a Godfather. You don't even have to call me and tell me it's true because I know it's true. How many times have you been wronged in your life by a lawyer in a court case that you know was rigged against you, your house stolen from you, your pride stolen from you, your children stolen from you? How many times did you wish that you knew someone like the Marlon Brando Godfather character who you can go to and say, Don, do this, Don, do that? So that's why we're fascinated by mob stories and mobsters. That's where I want to go for a moment, but that's not where I'm going entirely. I was going to do a little bit more about it. You're not going to hear one thing about the dossier today. That's people who basically have no education, who like using a French word to sound intellectual. So they say the word dossier as many times as possible in a 3-hour show. And then you think that they're bilingual. Dossier, 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 dossier. Dozy-do, dossier. Forget about it. That story's got no legs for a number of reasons, one of which is no one can say dossier west of the Hudson River. But, you know, so I was going to do that today, which is why is America fascinated with gangsters. Then I was going to tell you that plague is back. Its locus right now is Madagascar, and as a result of open borders, boys and girls, infected people from Madagascar are spreading pneumonic plague in Africa. Now, if you remember the Black Plague, and that's not a term about race, it's a term about disease. If you read history, it wiped out a good portion of the Earth's population. It could happen again. God is mad. God is very mad. He tries different diseases every few decades to see if he can cull the herd. This is back. Plague is back. And with the liberal open border policy, he just might win this time. So, you know, you can expect some plague in your neighborhood in the very near future as a result of the open borders. I was going to talk about that. And then I was going to talk about lawyer horror stories, because I read a terrible story about a lawyer, Kansas City attorney, shot dead on his porch as a man he recently defeated in court is tied to the case. I said, what? You see, they saw a white Chevrolet outside the lawyer's house after he was shot. And it was registered to a man named David Jungerman, who had recently lost a lawsuit to this lawyer. Jungerman is 79 years old, and he's not yet been named as a suspect. However, here's something you should know. The slain lawyer worked at the Fowler Pickett Eisenmenger law firm in Kansas, and they represented one of the two homeless men that this old homeowner, Jungerman, shot on his property in 2012. So in other words, this guy Jungerman comes out with a gun. Homeless guys are on his lawn. He's threatened by them. He shoots them. They're stealing copper from his property. They set off his alarm. The old man runs out, shoots them with an AK-47, and one of the homeless bum's legs are amputated because of the shooting. So the bum gets a law firm and sues the homeowner, winning $5.75 million against the old man. And what happened was this last Tuesday, a Jackson County, Missouri court served the old man an order that all of his real estate be seized to start paying off the debt to the bum and to his lawyer. So the lawyer, the innocent lawyer, Pickett, was sitting on his porch about 8 a.m. Monday morning, having just dropped off his two sons at their nearby school, cops told the Kansas City Star. And his wife, a doctor, heard a noise, ran outside, and found the lawyer shot. And that's the story of a Kansas City attorney shot dead on his porch as a man he recently defeated in court is tied to the case. Again, it ties in a little bit to why is America fascinated with gangsters. So I was going to do that, but then something else popped up. I linked to a story about a pay-for-sex dating site in Paris that is being banned. And I said, oh boy, this ties it all together. You talk about criminality, you talk about sexuality, you talk about exploitation, you talk about self-exploitation. You see, French students with overdue tuition bills were going in droves to a sugar daddy sex site. And an advertisement, a billboard, went up near Paris Sorbonne and the Paris Descartes University promoting Rich Meet Beautiful, which connects young adults with wealthy men and women willing to trade intimacy for cash. And according to the ad, it says they promise romance, passion, and no student loans. Well, the ad, of course, instantly sparked a debate among students and officials who argued that the Rich Meet Beautiful service amounts to pimping. So they're trying to ban the billboard and the service, so to speak. So it led me to look into this a little bit because I realized that the pay-for-sex dating site in Paris that's causing such a stir is nothing compared to what's going on in America, because similar services are extremely popular here in America. There are about 3.2 million sugar daddy mommy babies, according to SeekingArrangement.com, here in America. And if you don't know what that is, it's students who want to pay off their tuition by selling their bodies, in essence. And I looked into this. I was stunned to find out which universities top the list of students who sell themselves basically as prostitutes. And I'm going to tell you about that in a few minutes. And I don't have a reason to explain it to you. I mean, you'll figure it out for yourself. But apparently this is a huge business. Now, while the pay-for-sex dating site in Paris caused outrage, here in America, Sugar Baby University still exists. So I then said, wait a minute, this story combines everything: sex, gangsterism, sin, a mental plague. And I said I was going to ask my audience the following question, which is this. And it's a very daring question, I admit, and I'm not sure I'm going to get any callers at all. I may go to anything except the dossier story. I'll leave that for those who love to say the word over and over again to sound sophisticated. I'm asking a simple question on the show today, the Savage Nation. Are you a sugar baby? Are you a sugar baby? Are you earning your money as a student, selling yourself to rich old men or women? And are you victimizing yourself, happily doing so? Nearly 1.2 million students are looking for a way to get out from underneath the crushing weight of student loan debt. And apparently there's an awful lot of people engaging in this kind of thing. If you think it's small, the United States has the largest combined number of sugar daddy and mommy relationships, with 3.2 million people as of July 2016. Almost 500,000 daddies, 42,000 mommies. 466,000 sugar baby males. What? 2.2 million sugar baby females. These are selling their bodies, in other words. So it's a phenomenon. It's a social phenomenon. This is talk radio. This is not a boring college class in history or in something like that. It's a show. And that's it. Now, if you want me to get into the other subjects, I can do that. Like, why is America fascinated with gangsters? Do you believe in sin? See, it ties into my sin story. What is the worst sin you've ever committed? Or, if you'd rather get very prosaic, we could talk about where has the Las Vegas shooting story gone? Why is there no update? And why would the Vegas security guard Jesus Campos have fled to Mexico for a whole week? How could he have even done that with such a bad leg wound? That story stinks to high heaven. Or, if that doesn't attract your attention, old George Bush, 90-some-odd years old, confined to a wheelchair, has now been accused of sexual assault. This was the topper for me. I guess soon they will be accusing corpses of having committed such offenses. The very same sluts of Hollywood who would gladly perform any sex act with any animal in the streets of Hollywood to be seen by a photographer so they can make it to page 6 in the New York Post, and now screaming, "Oh, he looked at me and I know he wanted to touch me." And that old George Bush, "I love Obama, but I hate that old man because I was once near him," said an actress, "and even though he was in a wheelchair, his arm touched my buttocks. I'm just so hurt by it. I had to call Gloria, and Gloria's oh so busy these days she couldn't take my case." So we can go from the ridiculous to the sublime and then back again. I can talk about everything from the plague to sin to the sugar thing, lawyer horror stories, and all the news, views, and reviews that you've come to expect right here on the home of God, Faith, and Reason. Michael Savage.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. And whether or not you're shocked by the question or interested in it, it's still what I want to do, because otherwise I'll bore you to death by talking about the dossier. Dossier. Go get Clinton. Dossier. Go get him on the dossier. When I listen to radio that talks about the dossier, I get nauseous for a couple of reasons, because, I mean, what is talk radio? What do we call petty Communist Party operatives? See, the communists are into that, which is always tattling on each other. They did this, they did this, they did this. It's like the Bolsheviks versus the socialists versus the communists versus the Mensheviks versus the Schmendriks. It's like living in the Soviet Union after the Tsar was knocked over, where all these splinter groups of left-wing parties emerged, fighting with each other for power. After the Tsar was gone, all of a sudden you say, oh, there was a Bolshevik revolution. What you don't know is numerous left-wing parties took over the country, and there was no order in Russia. And they started fighting, killing each other for power. This is exactly what's going on in the country today without the overt killing that's going on here. I was going to talk about that while the Tsar had power and no laws, the communists had laws and no power. Yeah, I just said that right. While the Tsar had power and no laws, he was a dictator. The communists had laws and no power because they had no power. I was going to talk about that today, but I don't want to talk about that today, even though I just talked about that today. Because if I start talking about dossier, Hillary did this, the FBI did that, dossier, go get him. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to when you say dossier, go get him? Who are you talking to? Who are you appealing to? The average listener can't do anything about dossier this, dossier that. What do you want from the average guy who listens to radio? There are over 70 radio stations in almost every major city in America, plus the internet, plus streaming shows from around the world, and you want them to get involved with what, writing a letter, sitting down with a quill and an ink, and write a letter to your congressman? It's not 1994. Sugar radio is over. The days of the sugar days are over for radio. George W. Bush. Now we're getting the nuts coming out of that. All I said was George Bush in a wheelchair is now being accused of harassment. Because the guy's partially paralyzed, you see, from a stroke. So when he lifts his arm to meet a stranger, the arm can only go up to about the level of the waist of the stranger. And it accidentally brushed a girl's buttocks. She already claims he raped her or molested her. Oh, my, I was so offended. I had to call Gloria, but she's so busy these days you can hardly reach her. Well, you know it's only a matter of time until everybody you know is J'accuse. This is what went on in the French Revolution. All you had to do was say, J'accuse, and they cut your head off. You didn't have to have any proof. So I don't want those on the so-called conservative side, the patriots who love America oh so much, to suddenly become J'accuse, because then they're no different than the other guys, right? And you can sit there accusing when you don't even know the facts. You read it in an article, you read it on the Drudge Report, linked to somewhere else, and whether it's true or not, you don't know one way or the other, but already you're accusing and recusing. And you want someone to step in and drop the guillotine on them, right? So you're no different than they are. That's what's getting me sick about the whole business that I'm in. The older I get and the closer I get to the reality of what I'm actually working in and who pretends to be the patriots and who is allegedly the enemies of our way of life, the more I recognize that it's all hogwash. Both sides say that they're patriots. Both sides are power mad. Both sides are lying. And the fact of the matter is I'd rather talk about sugar babies than talk about that garbage, the dossier.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Do you believe in sin? What is the worst sin you've committed? Are you a sugar baby? And why are you victimizing yourself? Now, there are other questions I could ask, and I will. I'm not going to do this for 3 hours. I'll do other stuff, but I'm really interested in this whole question right now, and I want to take some calls on it. Kevin on WABC in New York, what's your topic, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Savage. Big fan. Listen to you every day. I don't see a problem with, a young girl in college trying to make it in his life, and some old guy that's paying her for 5 minutes of work. What's wrong with that? She's trying to make it. She's trying to make it in life. There's nothing wrong with that. She's trying.
Well, I can't sit in judgment, but I can ask you a question. Obviously, you're a young guy, right? Kevin, how old are you?
I'm 23, Michael.
Let's say you're 35 and you have 2 children, one of which is a daughter. Would you want your daughter to be a sugar baby prostitute?
Absolutely not. But I don't classify that as prostitution.
Oh, well, hold on now. You mean someone else's daughter can sell herself, but not your daughter? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, Michael.
Well, wait, why should someone else's daughter do it and you see nothing wrong with it, Kevin?
Yeah, but college is so expensive nowadays.
30 words, come on. But, okay, it leads to another question, and it's a very sensitive issue. Kevin, are you still there?
I'm here, Michael.
Do you go to college yourself?
No, I went to trade school. I'm an electrician now.
So, look, we're talking about girls who sell themselves on a site where an older guy pays them for their services, okay? And allegedly the girls are doing it for their tuition. We don't know if that's the issue. So you're saying prostitution should be legalized if it's consensual, in essence, aren't you saying that?
I believe, absolutely.
In the world in which you live amongst blue-collar guys, electricians, is it easy for you to go out and meet girls in bars?
Very easy.
And I'm asking leading questions, and it's not like a trial. I'm not trying to nail you.
No.
Would you say that today, with the lack of morality, the girls are giving it away for nothing?
They're giving it away easier because of all the social media and all the internet things, too.
Well, so you're saying from your point of view of a guy in his early 20s, what's the big deal? The girls are giving it away for nothing. Why shouldn't they sell it? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan, though, Michael. You truly are. You're a great man, and you truly are.
I'm not a great man. I'm just an older guy who's been around, who has some viewpoints that make sense. If that's greatness, well, thank you for the compliment. Kevin, you don't sound like a guy who wants to read God, Faith, and Reason, not if you're going to be working with electricity all day long and then going out to a bar looking for girls.
No, I have no interest in the book, Michael. I just like your show.
Oh, I love you.
All right.
I want to ask you something. Did you ever go, when you were a boy, your name is Kevin, are you Irish?
No, I'm Italian.
Did you ever go to church with your grandmother?
I didn't hear you, Michael.
Did you ever go to church with your grandmother when you were a little kid?
I'll go to church usually on Christmas, things like that.
No, when you were a kid, you only went on Christmas?
Yeah.
And you didn't believe in any of it, right?
I don't really want to answer that on the radio, Michael.
Why? Because you have family that listens to the show?
Well, yeah, but it's none of the people who are listening. It's none of their business by doing that.
No, I'm not trying to embarrass you. So you got a large group of people who listen to the Savage Nation, and they will recognize your voice, and you don't want to say anything about your faithlessness.
No,
I'll tell you what, Kevin, I'm going to send you a copy of God, Faith, and Reason anyway to give it to someone in your family who might appreciate it. Give it to them for Christmas. How's that?
Thank you, Michael.
There you go. So you got a stocking stuffer already. I hope it's a thick stocking that doesn't break very easily. That's going to be very interesting if the atheists and the cynics care about a book about like this. What they don't understand is it's not a book selling God, and I can't get into it yet. You're going to be shocked by what I... Oh, God, don't get me into this book right now, because there's a controversy that's going to emerge that they may run me off radio. They may tar and feather me if I tell you what I'm going to say at that time, and I'm saving it for the November period. You'll read all about it. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay, so stay in the line, Kevin. Clint's taking down your number. He's got a pencil and a pad ready, Clint, because he was hoping some of the women would come and confess as sugar babies, and he had the pencil ready. But so far, there's not been one sugar baby who's called. But let's go to the two topics as they play together. The mob, gangsters, America's fascination with Tony Soprano, Godfather, whatever. All the characters, the Al Pacino gangsters. America is fascinated with mobsters for a good reason. And the good reason is that we're all powerless, and the law, unfortunately, doesn't often work for us. We feel that we get screwed in a court of law, and we lose even if we're right. And usually the bad guys win. Not always, but usually. If they have more money, they're gonna bury you. And then we get infuriated, and we want to get even. And so we go to these movies which fantasize some divine, fair-minded gangster who doesn't deal drugs, he kisses babies, he's a nice guy, he's family-oriented. They eat loads of veal parmesan on Sunday with the grandchildren. He goes to church. He supports the church. You know, the fantasy that doesn't exist. So we go to the fantasy created by the Harvey Weinsteins about gangsters. I mean, when you think about who produces these movies, everything's a fraud. Virtually everything we see in the movies is fake, which doesn't mean we don't enjoy them. They're called entertainment for that reason. The problem is that when they start philosophizing and you believe them, then you're really in trouble, then you're really screwed up. In other words, if you believe that there's such a gangster in the world, okay, you're living in fantasy. So if you actually believe that, you're living in fantasy. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in the everyday world. That's all. Here we got okay, this is good coming now. What I'm going to lead to now is to the politicians, who are not different than gangsters in many ways, other than the politicians generally don't use muscle that I know of to get their way. But they're just as corrupt as most politicians. Most politicians are just as corrupt as mobsters. We all know that for a fact. And some of them are smoother at it than others. And as I said yesterday, and I will say it again, I don't think it's that controversial a statement, but it's worth repeating for the sake of today's discussion on the program, that while a criminal has a gang of soldiers, a nation's leader has an army of soldiers. Now tell me what the difference is. if you don't have to point it at Trump, because it doesn't just apply to Trump. It applies to any president we've ever had, whether it is a fair-minded Middle Westerner like Harry Truman, who dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, killing hundreds of thousands, right? Okay, you could say that's a pretty big gang, the U.S. Air Force. You want to go into that viewpoint, you can. Now you got the situation of what we're talking about here. So you see what I'm getting at here. Where does it end? Tell me where that line is between a statesman and a criminal. I don't know where that line really is. And I think as America gets more and more as we devolve more and more with the lying media that makes everything up. I mean, Trump called it fake news. He was 1,000% right. However, where is the real news? If everything on the left is fake news, where is the real news? Tell me what the real news is. You mean those of us on the other side are all real? We're all honest? We're all Boy Scouts? We all have a halo? We're all good? That is such garbage, you have no idea. And let me tell you something else. You're not going to like what's coming in 2018. But when you find out what we are digging into about those on the right side of the aisle who pretend to be holier than the cleanest Eagle Scout, but they're just like gangsters, your hair will stand up, and your whole world will spin on its head. I'm only going to hint at what I'm talking about. But as I speak, you're going to find out about, quote, conservative cartels in the media. You're going to find about conservative property owners who pretend that they're not property owners, who are collecting government money in housing while pretending they're anti-government. You're not going to believe what private investigators are about to that will expose in 2018. You're not going to believe it. And when that happens, you're going to have to rely upon something other than your faith in politics or your faith in being a, quote, conservative. What is a conservative? It's people who say that they're holier than thou. Are they really holier than thou when they run a cartel that blocks other people from an industry? Are they holier than thou when they lie to you about their streams of income and you can't even find it because it's in 5 front companies like Al Capone? Well, stay tuned, because in the next few months, you just might find out. And that's why I'm saying the lines that cross between criminality, politics, media are very, very blurry today. And that's why even electricians and cab drivers in New York City are religiously addicted to the Savage Nation. Because today's topic is interesting to me, I think it will be interesting to you. And I think that the callers will talk about paying for sex dating and things of that nature. I've not yet got a lawyer horror story. That was a horrible story about the lawyer who was shot in Kansas City just the other day. But let me ask you something. What if you were 78 years old and you owned a house, and some homeless bums were on your property? They came at night to steal copper off your property. You're a poor man. You own the house. Your alarm goes off. You run outside with a rifle, and you shoot them, the homeless thieves. And one of the homeless bums' legs have to be amputated because of the shooting. And then the bum goes and gets a law firm, and the bum's law firm sues you. The bum wins $5.7 million against you, and they take your house away from you. Tell me what you would do. And now you understand why the lines are blurred in America. It's because, unfortunately, today, the line between criminals and lawyers has so been blurred that we don't know which is which and who is who. One uses a computer and the other one uses a gun. But at the end of the day, everybody gets done. You understand what I'm saying? And so we're living in a lawless nation in many ways. And then the nation is falling apart and collapsing. It didn't start with Obama. It's not going to end with Trump. Let me put it to you that way. We're moving closer and closer and closer to a Bolshevik revolution in the United States of America. I can tell you right now, whether you want to believe it or not, I don't believe the government is strong enough to prevent the revolution that is emerging. They have stolen the truth. They have stolen the universities. They've stolen the church. They've stolen the family. They've stolen our dignity. They've stolen our honor. What's next? What is next? The Tsar had power and no laws. The communists had laws and no power. Where are we today? Think about it. I'll be right back. Wait, on the Savage Nation. But before I come back, I am going to do this right now because I was reading about Beets the other day. I know it's an advertiser, but I got interested in the product of Beets. And Beets are a very great health food. I know that. They're good for a lot of different things, and I can't make health claims. But the fact of the matter is, everyone knows beets are a health food. Since Roman times, ancient times, everyone knows that beets are a health food. So I found a company that takes beets grown to very, very specific standards and then concentrates them into superfood crystals. And, okay, it's a product called Super Beets, right? And what do you take it for? Energy, stamina, circulation, nutrients that go to your brain and body, helps you exercise longer, do more everyday activities. And so I say to you, drink Super Beets because it promotes the body's own natural ability to produce healthier circulation. And it is made from beets grown to exacting standards, then concentrated into superfood crystals. I can't stand the taste of beets, for example. That's why the product works. You don't have to eat the stuff. So if you want to improve your circulation, you call 800-481-0504 or go to savagelovesbeets.com, and with your first order, you're going to get a free 30-day supply with it and indicator strips, which will show you just how Super Beets works to increase your nitric oxide levels. That's a real thing. And free shipping. So call 800-481-0504, 800-481-0504, or go to savagelovesbeets.com and eat your borscht.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Hey, let me ask you something. We're going to get back to the sugar thing in a minute, but why would God care about politics? How does America fit into God's plan? How did God help build and raise up America? How has turning away from God led to a national decline? You see, you thought the God book was only about fuddy-duddy religious stuff. You're 100% wrong. It's all in God, faith, and reason, which you can buy on BarnesandNoble.com right now. Now let's go back to something that the Bible wrote about, which is prostitution. WABC, Mike, you were a what?
Hey,
Mike.
Savage. I'm 28 years old. I went to school in South Jersey. Things didn't work out for me there. I kind of got in with the wrong crowd. I went through a real bad breakup. I'm originally from North Jersey. I was kicked out of school and never really wanted to go home and could never face the music. So I started working down in Atlantic City. I had a couple friends down there. I could spend nights on their couches here and there. But I worked at a popular bar down there. And every weekend I would always happen to meet a bachelorette party, women there on trips, things like that. And I would end up spending the weekend with them. We would have fun. It would be for the weekend, and, you'd never see him again, but it would be, at the end of the day, it was an empty feeling trying to...
Wait, you would work the girl parties as a paid escort? Is that what you're saying?
No. I worked security in a casino where it was a very popular place.
Yeah, but wait, the board says you were a male sugar baby. Is that true?
Yeah, I would call myself that. I would work at night, and I'd work a couple days a week, and when these women were down there, I would spend the duration of their trips down there with them. They'd take me out to dinner. I'd spend weekends in lavish hotel rooms.
But wait, so they didn't actually pay you money. It was sort of a soft prostitution.
Yeah, there was never...
Well, they never gave you a couple of $100 when you went home?
No, I never went home, actually. That was...
So in other words, when you hung out in their hotel rooms, that was your home?
Yeah, exactly.
And today, what, you're a nuclear physicist at the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory with 6 children?
No, I'm happily married now to the girl that...
Oh, good. You see that? There you go. We have a wonderful story to tell on the show. That is a beautiful story. I'm telling you, it's a really great story. You actually told us a great story.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame.
It's a weird time right now in my life. I got to tell you, I am on a roller coaster. I'm like a horse in the starting gate waiting for the race. The book is about to come out. It's the riskiest book I've ever written, God, Faith, and Reason. I have no idea whether it's going to catch a wave or not. I've had 5 bestsellers in a row. Let's not underestimate that. Just because you don't see me on television doesn't mean I don't exist. One after the other, Trump's war, Stop the Coming Civil War, whatever. The fact is that my audience is very loyal. They love my show and they love my writing. So then I write a book on God, Faith, and Reason. It's like, are they going to understand where I'm coming from? Maybe, maybe not. So that is why I'm like a horse in the starting gate. So last night I was watching a movie from 1971 called Nicholas and Alexander. I had never seen it. Now, in the 70s, these large-scale great productions were over-the-top great. The settings are unmatched. I must have been filmed in the Winter Palace because it looked too authentic. Nobody could build a set like that. But it showed what it was like living in the time of the Tsar through the arrival of Rasputin, who gets control of the royal family. The Tsar is weak, and Rasputin is this country preacher, in essence, who the women go crazy for in the inner circle. And then he takes over, basically running the government. And then the hemophiliac son, the weak son, 4 beautiful daughters. The arrival on the scene of the revolution, the communist revolution, Bolshevik revolution, from Kerensky to Lenin, the brutality, the viciousness of the communists in killing everyone in their sight, including the socialists who were not violent enough for them. The then killing of the entire royal family, including the children and the crippled boy. It's an amazing story. I couldn't stop watching. It was 2.5 hours long. But it got me to thinking about America today. And I was saying to myself, could this ever happen here? Well, it is happening here. We have the seeds of such violence already here, whether it be in the Occupy movements, the Black Lives Matter movement, you name it. These are the violent communists of our time. I don't need anyone in CNN to tell me what I know to be true. I need Wolf Blitzer, the genius, to tell me what I know. Wolf Blitzer needs me to tell him what he should know, because he is liable to be just as vulnerable as I am, if not more so. But he doesn't know that. These people are so sold into their doxy of left-wing-ism that they don't even understand what they're fostering here. You think that a princess, I can't even mention his name because I get sued, the princess of CNN, a descendant of one of the royal families of America, you think he actually knows what he's doing? These people a lot of them are very stupid. They're clueless. They have no idea what they're fostering. So I can do the politics of it, but I'm not that interested in it. So that's why I'm trying to do other stuff, because I'm not really interested in politics per se. Of course I am. It's the mainstay of my show, but it's not to the exclusion of every other factor in the life, because at the same time this goes on, the nation is melting down in every other way you can imagine, whether it be the morons on the ball field taking a knee. Oh, they're real victims. He makes $18 million a year, but he's got to take a knee to spit on the flag to show how cool he is. A real victim, really victimized by white society, takes a knee. What a brave thing to do. To spit in the face of those who support you, you idiots, you. No, my friends, so these topics are more important to me in many ways, because it shows the degradation of the nation, little by little, step by step, day by day, and it's all because of the media and Hollywood. The Harvey Weinsteins, the holier than thou Harvey Weinsteins, who, when you rip away the curtain, what are they? Who are they? And who are you? And who am I? Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's why we're talking about something along the lines of the sugar babies today. The pay-for-sex dating sites in Paris that are causing such a stir. Even in Paris, it was too much for them. There were too many French girl and boy students who were selling their bodies to pay their tuition. And the governments are now banning them, as they have done in Belgium. But here in America, Craigslist has the sugar sites up there. Sugar babies, sugar this day, that. It's as old as time itself. People with money paying for their pleasures, and those without money getting the money because they need the money. And what else is new under the sun? And then I was talking about, why is America fascinated with gangsters? It's really tied into this. What is the worst sin you've committed? I could talk about the news. I can do the dossier and sound really intellectual by using a pseudo-French word, dossier. No one even knows what it is. You stop the average man. What is a dossier? They don't know what you're talking about. That's why the story has no legs. That's why Hillary Clinton's going to skate. That's why the FBI is not in trouble, because they picked the wrong title for the story, because they didn't have Hollywood in mind. If it was the left wing, they wouldn't call it dossier. They'd call it something else, like the Manila Folder story or whatever. Dossier, no one knows what you mean, dossier. The dog don't know what it is, dossier. What is it, a command to an animal to eat a greenie? Here's your dossier now. So I'm not going to do dossier. I asked someone I respect in New York City right now who listens to me on WABC, I said, is this a good story on the sugar babies? He's a very intelligent man. He says, Craigslist and Backpage are full of those ads with coded language. And he said the story is great because it causes a real challenge to feminists. Some say this is good because women are empowered, meaning selling their bodies. Others say this is evil because they're being exploited. And he said, I cannot think of a single topic that think of a single topic that makes a cleaner divide in a socio-political environment. Neither can I. And then he goes into the Weinstein issue. He said it ties into the whole Weinstein issue. Are the starlets complicit? Since, like prostitution for tuition, it's clearly a way to get ahead. Is it any different than the girls in Hollywood who knew the game and knew what they had to do to get ahead? Or the boys, for that matter? Or the fact that Mark Wahlberg, a first-class actor, just last week was quoted as saying he hopes God forgives him for his role in that movie, Boogie Nights, where he played a male prostitute. He's a great family man now and a fabulous actor. He has a wonderful life, and he's guilty over what he did. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's a topic. That's why I don't have to go to dossier. Okay, talk about George Washington's false teeth. KAOK. Sam, welcome to line one of the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I got hurt when I was in the Marine Corps, not overseas or anything, but in a training incident. I was stationed in 29 Palms, California. And then I got put on prescription opiates. And then I ended up getting kicked out of the Marine Corps because I was, buying them, on the streets and all. And that led into a further addiction. I'm from Louisiana, and I was stuck out in California, in the L.A. area. And the only way I could, really fuel my addiction was through pages like Backpage.com. I would meet up with men and women and pretty much prostitute myself for drug money.
So why are you calling today? You feel guilty about it, or you're not ashamed at all?
I'm not ashamed at all. I've moved on from that point in my life, but I just wanted to get it out there. That one that is there is an opiate crisis going on, and then also I do believe that prostitution should be legalized as long as it's regulated. Even if something is
that's a bigger question. Should prostitution be legalized? Because you could say it's a victimless crime on one hand. On the other hand, it may induce people into the field of prostitution once it is legalized. So it's a big question for the audience, Sam, and I don't have a distinct answer for it.
Yes, sir.
But you're a young man still, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm 28.
And you're not married. You don't have children, right?
I'm married, but I'm separated. But no.
Well, I'm sorry to hear it, but Sam, let me tell you something. The day you see your daughter born, your views of the world will change, and believe me, you're not gonna believe the world is the same after that. And when you see the child come through from the other world into this world, and you look at the eyes of that little baby before the life is wiped away, the film is wiped away from her eyes, and her life emerges, you will never ever think that prostitution should be legalized, Sam. That's all I can tell you. The world changes for a man once he has a child. It's easy to say prostitution should be legalized. But remember, it's someone else's daughter. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, and I understand. That's how...
And you are someone's son. You are someone's son. You, too, were once a helpless little baby that was laying on that thing that could hardly breathe without a mother or a father, right, Sam? So it's a very delicate question for an advanced society, and I do not have a definitive answer. But since you're so young, I don't think you're going to want to receive God, faith, and reason. Am I right about that? You're not interested in it?
Oh, no, definitely. My boss already pre-ordered 2 copies, and I would like my own. Yes, sir.
So you're not like the electrician then?
I'm
I'm a hardworking American trying to make America great again. You know, I do plant work.
There you go. There you go. So you're perfect then. It doesn't mean that just because you're not an oldster, you're not going to read God. Good. I'm sending it to you. Stay in the line. Clint, we got another customer there. Take down the name and number and send it on to the publisher. No, we do take the names and we do sell them out. Now I got other callers up here. Do I have time, Jim, for one more? Because it's good. You know, yesterday's show, I was talking about a lot of stuff. You know how many different comments I got on the African-American lady who called from Dallas? Many. They all loved that woman. They said, I wish to God she'd call back. They loved her. And they loved her because they never hear anybody like that. The media makes you think every black is a gangbanger or some low. I'm telling you, they couldn't believe that they heard a woman like her on this show. I got many, many friends who emailed me about her. It was amazing. So Sam was a male prostitute to feed his addiction. And now we're going to go from KAOK. KAOK, isn't that up in, where is Oklahoma? Of course it is. Louisiana, sorry. I haven't been there since the Super Bowl a number of years ago. I love New Orleans. Dangerous city, but very dynamic, where the street artists are the real artists, while in San Francisco there are no street artists. They pretend to be street artists, but they're not. You got a mime there on Fisherman's Wharf. It scares people with a palm tree. We don't have what they have in New Orleans like that. The food here from hunger, by and large. San Francisco cuisine. I know a few places, but other than that, cuisine. What cuisine? A snail shell with a piece of grape on it? That's a cuisine. Or an uncooked piece of venison they couldn't give away in a real restaurant. Cuisine. What cuisine? Are you kidding me? Forget about it. That's why New Orleans. And now I can't go in another restaurant now. I'll go in. What are they going to give me? The same calamari from China that looks like the anus of a whale that was refried? You know, I had a guy who tell me, there's a calamari you think you're eating. What is that? What's that thing? The scallops. He said, they're not scallops in most Chinese restaurants. He said, they're pig anuses. I said, I'm in the restaurant business. I said, because they're rubbery. They don't taste like scallops. They're not. They're buying the anuses of slaughtered pigs. I said, that's sickening. He said, maybe sickening. That's what they're selling today. So, you take your life in your hands. When I grew up, I told you we were poor, but they never ate in restaurants. They were kind of poor, immigrant people. To them, a restaurant they always justified it. Why would he eat that garbage in a restaurant? They liked home-cooked food. I couldn't wait to eat in restaurants. I hated home-cooked food as a kid. It was boring, horrible. I had to listen to my parents fight. It was depressing. I wanted to throw myself out of I didn't want to hear it another minute. I was dying to go to Romeo's Spaghetti on 14th Street and get spaghetti in a steaming window. And did I ever read that poem to you? I'm going to drift now into When Pasta Was Spaghetti. Maybe we should play that when I come back, just as a treat. I'm in a good mood. Something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel too good. I'm really worried because usually when I get into one of these states, the next day is a collapso. I told you I'm in a very strange state of mind. I got to play with it because I'm like a horse in a starting gate, and that gate has not gone up yet. All right, I got to run along. I'm short. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Because yesterday we had a memorial to a Fat Domino. We were playing Blueberry Hill. I thought it was a funny line. I got the blueberries, but where's the hill? It's not a bad joke. But today we're talking about jokey stuff like why is America fascinated with gangsters? Do you believe in sin? What is the worst sin you've ever committed? We're not doing dossier. We're talking about sugar babies, sugar daddies, sugar this, sugar that. And now we go to callers. Joe on WABC, line 8. What's on your mind, Joe? What's on your mind, Joe? What do you know, Joe?
Dr. Savage, it's a pleasure. I just wanted to mention something about what do you think Corker and Flake, who are they in this big, if you were to look at the administration and the whole Republican Party as a big mafia, are they like the Barzini and the D'Italia family?
Who? You mean only the Republican Party or both parties?
It's all one big.
Well, I don't know that they're overt criminals. I do know that if you watch the gangster movies, which are written by pretty intelligent people, they always say, who do we own in the newspapers? Who do we own in City Hall? Who do we own in Congress? I mean, it's a well-known fact What do you think a lobbyist is? What is a lobbyist? What does it mean, a lobbyist? They're going with bags of money or a trip to Haiti, a trip to Dominican Republic or whatever, or women, and they're buying favors to get their contracts, their grants, their fake solar mills built in the desert. That's what it's all about.
No, I understand totally, but I'm looking at this. How is this playing out right now? You've got Corker and Flake sitting there, and they're talking about Trump and how they're going to leave.
The minute you say Corker and Flake, the steam goes out of my engine. The air goes out of my balloon. I'm not interested in Corker and Flake. They're moderate left-wing Republicans of a George Bush style. They're irrelevant right now politically because the country is so divided. The country is so polarized, extreme left, extreme right, that guys like the middle of the roaders are finished, as far as I can tell, on both sides, Joe. We're going to have the Bolsheviks versus the statists. It's that simple. And they're not one. And they're, by the way, they're not one and the same. People think they are. They're not. Because if you're saying that you're a conservative, tell me how you're not a statist. What does that actually mean? I believe in freedom. I believe in individual rights. Yeah, right. Look into your own life. We'll see if they believe in freedom and individual rights and competition. See what they do to starve competition in the radio industry. You'll find out how much of these phonies really believe in freedom and individual rights. And let me tell you something. When 2018 comes around, it's going to be a blockbuster of a story about many of these freedom, liberty-loving conservatives are no different than the people that they pretend to hate. You'll find out, and you'll make up your own mind. No one is above the truth, myself included. Savage Nation, home of God, faith, and reason. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
You imagine you're at the family table on Sunday. You imagine you're at the nightclub. You imagine you're out on a caper or you're doing a horrible thing. You know, it's like it's called imaginary. That's why we love it. And I wonder, I've thought about this my whole life. How influenced are we all by characters in movies without even knowing it? Subtly, overtly, some of us, let's say, completely copy an entertainer. That's true so much. You see that with a lot of the women, the young girls copy, let's say, Britney Spears at the time, or one of the others. They try to be like them. That's obvious. But how many of we adults, even we adults who claim to be immune to Hollywood and claim to be on the other side, how many of us are playing a role? What role are we playing? Who am I playing? I mean, I'm asking myself that question because my father may rest in peace. I got to go back to this question I'm not debasing the man. He was a great man in his own way. But I know he grew up on the Lower East Side of New York. Although he was a Russian immigrant and Jewish, he was not religious at all. He didn't believe in God. My mother was God-fearing. He used to say things to me that as a little kid, I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. I say, Dad, is there a God? He said, let me tell you something. He said, when I die, you could throw me in a garbage can. Now, if you're 4 years old or 5, and your father says you could throw me in a garbage can, that's a pretty horrible image. But that's what he said to me. I didn't even know what he meant. He meant he didn't believe in anything. He was a complete and total cynic and a realist. Because he grew up in the mean streets of New York, and he saw what it was all about. If you're 9 years old and you have to be driving a cart with a horse on it to make a living, which he did at 9, I couldn't believe that story. Like he was on a cart, a laundry cart with a horse on the Lower East Side of New York, and the horse got away from him, and it pulled him, and he couldn't control it. He fell off the laundry wagon. A spike went through his foot. There was always like a thing in his... I never knew where the scar came from. So he was around the Italian gangsters, the Jewish gangsters. He was a very honest man. He wouldn't take a dime that wasn't his. He believed in the truth above all else. He was very much like the Robert De Niro character in the bus driver story. I forget, This Boy's Life? No, not This Boy's Life. Where the father's a bus driver in the Bronx and the kid wants to ape the gangsters and the father is the straight one and stands up to the gangsters. That's fictional. Bronx Tale. He was very similar to that in the real world. He wouldn't take a dime that wasn't his, and he wouldn't lie, and to him truth was everything. So he taught me a lot of values. But the point is that I believe, looking back, and Dad, I hope you're not mad at me, he wore the fedoras, He wore suits. He had to look a certain way. He had to conform to the look of that time to look like a tough guy, or else he would have been stepped on and thrown on a subway track. In other words, he had to play a role. Do we all play a role? A kid who's a tough kid from Texas, real tough, tough as iron. Let's say a natural John Wayne, a natural Clint Eastwood type. He goes into the Marines. Is he playing a role, or is he just a tough kid? And when he gets in the Marines, what role is he playing? I mean, Shakespeare was right. All the world's a stage, and we are mere actors within it, on the stage. I understand that. So I'm not trying to make a bigger point. I'm just, moving around, having a conversation. I used to call the show Cafe Savage many years ago. In many ways, I wanted to become Cafe Savage again. I don't want to be a high school history teacher with a Robert Hall suit with a tuna fish stain in the suit that the kids really are laughing at when he turns his back to them and lectures them. I don't want to be that guy on the radio with the Robert Hall suit, and he takes a tuna sandwich to work, and the stain comes through the front of the suit, and he thinks that he's a genius, and they all love him, and the kids are mocking him and throwing spitballs at him behind his back. No, that's not what I want to do in radio. I want to do Cafe Savage. I used to have a great sound by Jim. Jim, while I'm ad-libbing, get the pasta with spaghetti song and poem ready. I really, just tell me when it's ready. So I used to do Cafe Savage. So I said, make a sound thing of a sound of espresso machines with the whoosh, then the glasses were clinking, the cups were rattling. And I'd say, just think of me as a guy who owns a cafe somewhere in your city or town. And I'm the patron, and you're coming in, and we're just shooting the breeze, and we're talking about things of the day. I loved the show in those days. And then what's happened is, I think we've all become so impressed with ourselves and how important we are that we're changing the world. Well, it is true I changed the world. I helped elect a president. My son said that at my party. Here's another side story before we play. God bless my son. I hope he loves me more than I love my father. You never know what people think of you, especially your kids. You don't really know. I think he does. So I had my birthday party, March 31st. I had about 50 really great people there. And we had two filmmakers, really top-flight documentary filmmakers. I just got the other day 1 hour of raw footage of the party. There was Nick the Fisherman. Everyone was in that Italian restaurant in the back room. And I was saying, when I first met my wife in New York, it was on the Lower East Side, and I went to a Sicilian restaurant when I met her. That's no longer there, La Orchida on 7th Street and 2nd Avenue. Here I am, X number of decades later, and I'm having a party in a Sicilian restaurant in a backyard in San Francisco. I never would have believed it. But the point is, at the end of that 60 minutes of raw footage, I watched it the other day for the first time. The last 2 minutes, the filmmaker takes my great son in the hallway and asks him, what do you think of your father? And he said something that blew my mind. He said, when my dad was young, he used to hang around with the writers and the poets in North Beach. He just wanted to have a good time, make a living, raise a family. He didn't really want to hurt anybody, to do anything. He just wanted to enjoy his life. And he said, who would have thought that would have led to him today electing a president of the United States? Now, coming from him, that's as real as it gets. You can take that one to the bank. So thank you. I don't know if he's listening. He's too busy to listen to talk radio. I don't know who listens to talk. How do you know it's such a... All right, so now, years ago, when I was a local host on KSFO, and I really had a good time in radio before it became a dirge of trying to, just do politics day and night. Dossier, this, dossier. So I used to do a lot of stuff. So one of the things I did was I was invited to the Italian-American Club here, or the Italian-American Museum. They asked me to do something. So I wrote a poem for them that was entitled When Pasta Was Spaghetti. Let's hear it and see what it sounds like today. I found the poem When Pasta Was Spaghetti in my archives. It was written, let's see, Michael Savage, August 1985, written in a lightning storm at 40,000 feet over Cheyenne, Wyoming. When I thought the plane was going to crash, I wrote When Pasta Was Spaghetti. So here it is, whether you like it or not, all right? So you liberals get ready to sneer, and you sane people get ready to enjoy it, because it's got the mood set up. It's called When Pasta Was Spaghetti, and try to imagine it, all right? The hairy forearms of New York serve you your coffee with a turning gesture, an offering that says drink, eat, enjoy. The wiry Italian in Vincent's Clam Bar, the one behind the greased-over register, the young kid connected who receives his deference from the spaghetti cook, older than his gangster father, the spaghetti cook who looks like an old-fashioned doctor from the Bronx with clipped mustache. He actually pulls some noodles out of the pot and eats them as they cook, looking to the grimy ceiling for his tender answer. Well, they used to call it spaghetti. Now it's pasta at $10 a plate. The smoky windows of Romeo's Spaghetti now offers radios and knickknacks. It was 50 cents a plate then. In neon letters that you couldn't miss, even through a fogged-over window on a cold winter's eve, there was life. Marinara sauce that smacked to the sea. Noodles as long as your young arm. Meatballs as fluffy as your dream of them. Bread on the table you'd eat against your parents' admonitions that the meal was coming, the meal was coming. And men, some burly with black hairy forearms whose smiles scared you, and little skinny guys with the look of murder on their faces, and people who slurped their spaghetti straight to their mouths from the plate, one motion like Chinese shoveling rice at mouth with clicking sticks. That was gusto before it became a beer ad. That was taste before it became a synonym for fashion. That was spaghetti before it became pasta. Play the music. I'll do that for private readings for $100,000 for my favorite charity, which is the Poor Okay. Society. It's good. It's still good. I listened to it. Now, either I didn't cringe. You know, you listen to yourself sometimes. Say, oh, what was that? No, that I like. I would book that act. I like that guy who wrote that poem in that plane, in the lightning storm, at X number of feet over Cheyenne, Wyoming, when we thought the plane was going to crash. There's more to that story that comes to mind, by the way, and I could get into it in a minute if you're not too bored. In those days, like in 1985, if you thought the plane was going to crash, you'd say, "Stewardess, give me 2 more of those little bottles." And they'd come over with a smile as the plane was shaking and give you 2 more little bottles of whatever you were drinking. Now, sitting next to me was an elegant Chinese lady who would not talk to me the entire flight. I tried to strike up a conversation, not like, look, I'm not a Harvey. I wanted to have a conversation. 2 first-class seats. I was on the way to a book tour. I don't know what I was doing. I tried to talk with her. She was well-dressed, highly educated. You could see that. She wouldn't answer me. I figured leave her alone. Okay, she doesn't need a seat companion bothering her. So, all right, now we're in the storm, the plane's shaking. I get the drinks. I start to drink. She figures this guy's crazy altogether, but he's not afraid. He's fearless, or he's nuts. In either case, she suddenly grabbed my arm, and she starts rattling away, talking to me. And as the plane settles down, she tells me her life story. And it turns out she's the CEO of one of America's major fashion retailers. But more interesting to me was the fact that when I told her I was into herbal medicine, I was on a book tour about a herbal book I had written. She says, well, it's interesting. My grandfather or my grandmother, I don't remember which, was one of the most famous Chinese healers. And it was a whole story. It just shows you how things work out. And that's the end of that story. Nothing more came of it. All I'm saying to you is that somebody up there is controlling some things, not all things. And I believe at the end of the day that we have free will. I totally don't believe everything that happens to us happens because God reaches. He's so busy, he got nothing. He figures he gives you a stroke. He didn't give you a stroke. Things happen, but we have free will. We have a mind to think. God set the whole thing in motion. He created the whole deal. This planet, our solar system, this and all the other universes, all of the stars were created by God. But at the end of the day, these little specks called humans have free will. And we can hurt people, we can heal people, we can love people, we can hate people, we can be a healer, we can be a killer, we can be an entertainer, we can be a jester. And that's all I want to say at this time.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Hey, listen to me. Nothing is more essential than protecting your home, but getting traditional home security, punishing, expensive. There's a better way to protect your home with Simply Safe Home Security. Why don't you ask anyone locked into a long-term security contract? They're on the hook for 3 years, paying $45, $55 a month. Or why don't you ask someone who has had a system hardwired into their walls? The installation alone cost them a fortune, but Simply Safe got rid of everything that makes home security a nightmare. Simply Safe has no long-term contract. There are no obligations. This is award-winning home security, better, smarter home security. Your home is protected around the clock with 24/7 professional monitoring. And remember, if there's trouble, they'll send police. And this great service, hey, costs just $15 a month with Simply Safe. That's 3 times less than what the other guys charge, and there are no hidden fees, honestly. So protect your home today. You can buy Simply Safe at your local Best Buy and have your home protected by tonight. Or visit simplysafesavage.com and you will get 10% off. You heard me, simplysafesavage.com for 10% off your system. Simplysafesavage.com. Now on to the callers as this hour comes to an end on the Savage Nation. Helen, line 5, WABC, what's on your mind?
Hello, Michael Savvy Savage. I adored that spaghetti pasta story. Did you write that?
Yes.
Oh, my God, you were so creative, and you touched my heart. And
in those days, I was creative. I've lost all my creativity.
Well, I hope someday you get it back, because...
No, I'm kidding. No, I tell you the truth, I can still knock out a poem or a song and still do an act when I need to. Helen, stay in the line. I'm going to send you God, Faith, and Reason. You know what I think I ought to do? I wish there was a way for me to figure this out. Everyone who pre-orders the book, I'm not saying I can do it, we'll give you an email address where if you can send a receipt where you prove that you bought the book, pre-ordered it through B&N or Amazon, we'll send you a free download of that. How's that? The Pasta with Spaghetti song. I can't do it yet, so hold on. Maybe I could put that together. All right, look, I'm having a good time. That means you're enjoying the show. And, of course, all good things come to an end. At the end of this hour, certain stations go on to other shows. They have other hosts, but there's still over 250 stations that don't do that. That's called my third hour. We've got still great callers who may hold on. I wish I could take Carmine in New York, who says that the life of the mob isn't as glamorous as it made out in the movies. Well, Carmine, I do have time for you. Line 9, welcome to the show. Carmine, what's on your mind?
I appreciate it. You're a good man, my friend. Listen, I honestly and truthfully, the public must snap out of this illusion about the mob and organized crime being so sweet. It's a bunch of creeps. They're lecherous. They're late night guys. They screw their girlfriends and other people's wives. There's no honor in it. And the other thing is that if you watch history, and I know you're a student of history, you'll remember when Eisenhower used Lucky Luciano to bring Mussolini to the people where they took care of him and his girlfriend. But what they don't remember, or maybe it's not publicized enough, is that the merchant marine ship that was sunk after it was emptied in the harbor of New York City because Eisenhower screwed Lucky Luciano afterwards. So,
so they got even. But look, the mob controlled the waterfront, and as we understand the story, the United States Navy went to Luciano and asked for help in stopping the sabotage of the ships. That's a given fact, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. There are still gangs in America, whether they be of one ethnic group or another. Why are they not being used to stop what's going on in this country today?
Because they're against the current political wave of corruption. They're not that corrupt. The people on the streets came out of the streets. In fact, they came out of the basements of many churches when they were first immigrants because they were pushed into those dark corners. So
wait, who is not as corrupt? You're saying the gangsters are not as corrupt as they were?
They're not as their targets are not. They wouldn't work with the government again.
Oh, well, but why? Why wouldn't they work with the government today?
Because they're more corrupt. They got their own businesses. They're in a lot of other areas of society.
Oh, my God. Okay, my friend, there's an answer.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. 855. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the national...
Talk about a journalist, sexual harassment. Are you kidding me? Why are so-called conservatives salivating over the fact that the journalist Mark Halperin was accused of sexual harassment? Why would that be a family value of a freedom-loving conservative to sit there like an 8-year-old boy laughing at this guy and going berserk with pleasure, saying, oh, he's another liberal who got it? That's embarrassing to me. Because what goes around comes around. If you think this is over and it's going to stick to the left side of the aisle, you're mistaken. Let me tell you that. We already got a picture of a woman on the other side who's seen leering at a woman's breasts. Oh, yeah. The Miss Holier than Now, Ellen DeGeneres, is seen leering over an actress's breasts. It's right on the front of the Drudge Report. Go look. It's disgusting. She holds herself up as everyone's America's sister. So, this is not over. This is a witch hunt. Some of it is true. Some of it is made up. Some of it's just greedy lawyers who should be put in prison. But it's far from over. And before the guillotines stop falling, you'll be quite surprised to see whose neck is in the block. That's all I can tell you. We don't know who's getting it next because there is a witch hunt ongoing right now. It's funny it didn't happen when Clinton was doing. That's the oddest part to me, though. When Clinton was actually not looking or touching or thinking or suggesting, when he was actually doing an intern, do you know what these very self-righteous people were saying? They're shenanigans. Oh, yeah, look back, get the tapes. Eleanor Clift, the great journalist, so-called at the time. Fake presidential historians. Come on now, it's just shenanigans. All of the self-righteous phonies, shall I say liberal in front of it, go ahead, make your day. Just shenanigans of Bill Clinton. Now every actor, every reporter, every teacher, every priest is suddenly facing a guillotine. Who knows how much of it is true? And who knows how much of it is just 15 minutes of fame from over the hill? I don't. What do I know? I mean, it's a reality. Who knows if it's real a person's life? So, okay. Now, Trump. I almost got through a whole day without even saying the words. That's pretty amazing. 2 straight hours without a T or a P on it. Pretty amazing. I don't know if I want to go back to what I was doing, which was that. But I got so many callers I have to. But before I do, let's play a few sound bites. Gloria Steinem, a woman above everyone, cleaner than everybody. Gloria Steinem is chiming in. Where'd they dig her up from? Which crypt did they pull her out of? What was she on, a crypt in Staten Island? Okay, let's play Gloria Steinem in clip 4. They opened the crypt in Staten Island, and out came Gloria Steinem. Here she is.
Part of the problem, if you'll bear with me for a minute, is advertising, because advertising supports television, and therefore television rewards the number of hits. Mm-hmm. And that made him a television star, even though watching him was like watching a traffic accident.
She's talking about Trump again with that snide insider sneer and laugh, the one that they all have, that they all think they all agree with each other. And then she talks about sexual assault in Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. And then we get to Jane Fonda, another sterling American citizen who admitted as near as I think last week that she's proud of the fact that she stabbed America in the back. So, okay, let's have 35 seconds of Gloria Steinem. Oh, no, is it Jane Fonda? Jane Fonda, another one. She can't go, both of them, they can't go quietly into the night. They can't shut their mouths. They're like the Nancy Pelosi's of the entertainment world. They can't shut up. I told you when I was in graduate school, I had a very esteemed professor of epidemiology who said to me, Michael, the first thing that goes in the elderly is their judgment. So listen to clip 5 with that in mind.
12 million people in the United States work in restaurants. Most of them are women. And they're often young, but not always, but they survive on tips. And if you don't look smiley with a low-cut dress and tight, and the boss tells you have to do it, this is often the first job, right?
Oh.
So these young women, it becomes the norm. Nothing can be as horrible afterward as what was done to me in restaurants, so it must be this is just the way life is.
So there are restaurant chains that reward or require women to have breast implants. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
I'm speechless. Well, my professor was right. The first thing to go in the elderly is their judgment. If you think that's intellectually stimulating, I have a television channel to recommend to you. But I think you know the initials, so there's no point in doing so. What do you mean 12 work in restaurants and they wear tight skirts for tips? What is that about? What is she saying? That she looks like a dog in a tight skirt and she wishes she was young and could put on a tight skirt again, which she wore when she was young before she became a raging feminist? Or Jane Fonda, who made her name as a sex symbol, as Barbarella, and now that she's over the hill and looks like a prune that was left out in the Arizona sun, now suddenly she's against women who wear tight skirts? Are they joking? That's the way it is. This is one man's opinion. That's all. Phil on WABC, what's your topic? Go ahead, please.
Hey, Michael. Indulge me, if you will, until I get to my main point, which is that there's no honor among thieves. And I'll do that in a minute or so. But I have to mention, you had the chicken barley soup was up to here before when you talked about the pig's anus. Anyway, I wanted to mention two things quickly.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Pig's anus? What chicken barley soup?
Yeah. Suppose you stumbled upon an Antifa or a BLM rally.
No. Whoa. You said I mentioned the pig's anus, which are being substituted for a certain type of seafood. But what does barley soup have to do with it?
Well, it's just a guy who smoozes from New York. He uses that expression.
I never heard that one. Okay, so what's your main point? Because time is short.
Okay, main point. I'm saying to you a couple of quick things. You spoke about everybody wishing they had a godfather, and you referenced a few actors in movies, and I wouldn't want to glorify the mob either. That's a very tough life indeed. But if you ask me in a pinch who I'd rather have on my side, a gangster or some shyster lawyer politician, I'd take the wise guy 9 times out of 10. Because I'll tell you one thing, George Carlin, no conservative was he, but do you know whom he believed to be the lowest scum on the planet? The answer, federal prosecutors. So hence you have Comey and Mueller, 2 low-life PC libs, if ever there were 2. And
no, the real bad one is Weissman. Weissman, who has done things to people, destroyed companies, according to everything I've read, has done more damage to individuals than you could imagine, according to the reports that are coming out, and he's unknown. And yet he's one of the most vicious of prosecutors who ever existed. So what are we going to do about it, though? We're going to sit here and complain about it. We could say it from today until kingdom come. Are they ever going to go away, do you think, Phil? I don't think so.
Is that Weissman? Is he the one that's underneath the Attorney General?
I don't know who he's underneath tonight, but I know he's underneath someone.
I mean, Sessions.
I don't know. I don't know who he's underneath. Got to ask his psychiatrist that question. Who's the biggest sin? Let's do a sin job. Government as the mob? I don't know. Easy to move from stripper to hooker? Okay, that's boring. Okay, let's take WABC. Andrew, line 4, you're up on the Savage Nation. Batter up.
My Uncle Mike, not Mike David, but Mike with the vowel at the end of his name.
Hold it. We're breaking up here. Clinton, you got to fix this for me. I'm sorry, we can't take a call because when they hold a long time on a cell, this signal breaks up as the car moves to another place. Then when I get around to them already, they're invisible. Blah, here we are. So now there's nothing better. Did you give me the piece on Maxine Waters in her years at Fannie and Freddie? Do I have it? Yeah, I got to do this because here it is. It's very important you know this story. I don't know if you know this, but in 2010, Big Mouth Waters was charged by the House Ethics Committee, accused of helping a bank in which her husband owned stock secure federal bailout funds. This was in August of 2010. We are talking about the same Maxine Waters, who today does not stop with her big trap, screaming about nationalists, right-wing Nazis. Anyone who supports Trump, she calls a Nazi, a right-wing nationalist. And you know what? I'm getting fed up with it. So what we're doing now on the Savage Nation is alerting you to Maxine Waters' own house of cards. And I refer you to The Hill from August 10th, 2010, Rep. Waters charged on 3 counts. You'll not believe the story when we get to it, either later or tomorrow, and I hope you will circulate it until eventually Maxine Waters understands that there's much more to everyone's life than meets the eye.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
think that I have been extremely responsible in laying out the case for why this president should be impeached. I know that the right wing, the white nationalists, all of those who are organized around this president do not like this. And people are not accustomed to a woman in particular, an African-American woman, taking this kind of leadership. How dare me challenge the president of the United States? But we have never witnessed a president who has been as irresponsible and as dangerous as this president.
All right, so she's on her high horse. She's above the law. She's as clean as the driven snow. Not. Now, she was charged on 3 counts of charges on August 10th, 2010, but the charges did not stick because Obama was the president. The House Ethics Committee on August 10th, 2010, or thereabouts, charged Maxine Waters of helping a bank in which her husband owned stock secure federal bailout funds. The committee charged the 10-term California big mouth with 3 counts of violating House rules and the federal ethics code in connection with her effort to arrange a 2008 meeting between Treasury officials and representatives with One United Bank. Now, the panel said that Maxine Waters, who sits on the Financial Services Committee, broke a House rule requiring members to behave in a way that reflects credibility or creditably on the chamber. The committee said that by trying to assist One United Bank, she stood to benefit directly because her husband owned a sizable amount of stock that would have been worthless if the bank failed. Are you listening to this carefully? One United, on which her husband sat on the board, asked for $50 million in assistance from the government to cover expected losses from the collapse of the mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But Treasury lacked the authority to grant the request, the Ethics Committee said. And according to the 10-page statement of alleged violation, Maxine Waters did not instruct her Chief of Staff, Mikhail Moore, to stop assisting One United after she told Financial Services Committee Chairman Barney Frank, DMAS, she would halt her outreach. Now, let me pause right here. Remember when Barney Frank suddenly and unexpectedly resigned? No one knew why. You remember that, Jim? Now, you know these Democrats never resign unless there's a scandal in their background. We don't know if there was a connection between this scandal and the retirement, sudden at that, of Barney Frank. But it's worth looking into. Because now that Maxine Waters is claiming that all those who support Donald Trump are right-wing and white nationalists, I think it's time that we white nationalists and right-wingers, even if we're not white and not nationalists, and not right-wingers, but we really wonder why she has such a vendetta against Donald Trump. And it seems to me those with the loudest acts, or the shiniest acts, have something to hide. Now, in early September of that year, Barney Frank had warned Maxine Waters against getting involved because of her husband's ties to the bank, telling her he would handle all contact on behalf of the bank, according to this report. That's even before he knew about her husband's One United stock. It is unclear when Frank learned about his holdings. Now listen, it gets even better. Are you ready for this? And if you want to read about it, it's The Hill, Susan Crabtree, and Jordan Fabian, August 10th, 2010, Representative Maxine Waters charged on 3 counts. But Moore, who is Waters' grandson, contacted One United executives in late September, sending them publicly available draft legislation of a broad troubled asset relief program, that is TARP bill, that would have permitted Treasury to buy certain assets of banks. If you look into the details, you will find how much money flowed to One United. And we learn in this article that if One United failed, Maxine Waters' husband's investment would have been worthless, the subcommittee wrote. The fact that her grandson handled the One United matter for her raises even more ethics concerns, watchdogs argue. You see, House rules bar members from hiring for their congressional offices nearly anyone with a family relationship, though not grandchildren. So that's Representative Maxine Waters, who certainly has a right to criticize the president whenever she wishes to do so. But for her to impeach all those who voted for him and all those who continue to support his principles as, quote, white nationalists, to me that's too much. And now it's time for the government to revitalize the Maxine Waters case, or shall we say, the Maxine Waters case of collusion between herself and the bailout of the banks. And that's the rest of that story. Now, I'm reading that in the time of the fall of the Tsar of Russia, that would be Tsar Nikolai, the Tsar had absolute power, but there were no laws in the country of Russia. No laws whatsoever. He was the law. And then when the communists took power, they had laws and no power. So you have to ask yourself, where are we today as a nation? Is it a nation where the president has all the power and there are no laws? Absolutely not. Or is it a nation where the so-called left-wing fanatics, call them communists if you want, Bolsheviks, socialists, Leninists, Maoists, it doesn't matter to me. Do they really have any power? Or are they just trying to use laws to exert their power? These are questions we will continue to examine as the show emerges tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. This is the Savage Nation, home of God, Faith, and Reason, which I really want you to buy either on BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com so the word God hits the bestseller lists.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So we're doing melodrama today on the Savage Nation, a little socio-economic melodrama. And whether or not you're shocked by the question or interested in it is still what I want to do, because otherwise I'll bore you to death by talking about the dossier. Dossier! Go get Clinton. Dossier! Go get him on the dossier! When I listen to radio that talks about the dossier, I get nauseous for a couple of reasons, because I mean, what is talk radio? What do we call petty Communist Party operatives? See, the communists are into that, which is always tattling on each other. They did this, they did this, they did this. It's like the Bolsheviks versus the socialists versus the communists versus the Mensheviks versus the Schmendriks. It's like living in the Soviet Union after the Tsar was knocked over, where all these splinter groups of left-wing parties emerged, fighting with each other for power. After the Tsar was gone, all of a sudden you say, oh, there was a Bolshevik revolution. What you don't know is numerous left-wing parties took over the country, and there was no order in Russia. And they started fighting, killing each other for power. This is exactly what's going on in the country today without the overt killing that's going on here. I was going to talk about that while the Tsar had power and no laws, the communists had laws and no power. Yeah, I just said that right. While the Tsar had power and no laws, he was a dictator, the communists had laws and no power because they had no power. I was going to talk about that today, but I don't want to talk about that today, even though I just talked about that today. Because if I start talking about dossier, Hillary did this, the FBI did that, dossier, go get him. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to when you say dossier, go get him? Who are you talking to? Who are you appealing to? The average listener can't do anything about dossier this, dossier that. What do you want from the average guy who listens to radio? There are over 70 radio stations in almost every major city in America, plus the internet, plus streaming shows from around the world, and you want them to get involved with what, writing a letter, sitting down with a quill and ink, and write a letter to your congressman? It's not 1994. Sugar radio is over. The days of the sugar days are over for radio. So I don't want those on the so-called conservative side, the patriots who love America oh so much, to suddenly become j'accuse, because then they're no different than the other guys, right? And you can sit there accusing when you don't even know the facts. You read it in an article, you read it on the Drudge Report, linked to somewhere else, and whether it's true or not, you don't know one way or the other, but already you're accusing and recusing. And you want someone to step in and drop the guillotine on them, right? So you're no different than they are. That's what's getting me sick about the whole business that I'm in. The older I get and the closer I get to the reality of what I'm actually working in and who pretends to be the patriots and who is allegedly the enemies of our way of life, the more I recognize that it's all hogwash. Both sides say that they're patriots. Both sides are power mad. both sides are lying. And the fact of the matter is, I'd rather talk about sugar babies than talk about that garbage, the dossier. Now, if you want me to get into the other subjects, I can do that. Like, why is America fascinated with gangsters? Do you believe in sin? See, it ties into my sin story. What is the worst sin you've ever committed? Or, if you'd rather get very prosaic, we could talk about where has the Las Vegas shooting story gone? Why is there no update? And why would the Vegas security guard Jesus Campos have fled to Mexico for a whole week? How could he have even done that with such a bad leg wound? That story stinks to high heaven. Sex is in the air. This is the most sex-crazed society the world has ever seen. There has never been a more sex-crazed society on earth, so far as I can tell, being a historian. I've never seen anything like this. I think even Rome was not as disgustingly degenerate as America is today. But, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is an old story. We know that Hollywood was built on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But there's one other element that Hollywood was built on, which is violence. I mean, without violence, there would be no Hollywood. And without us as the audience for this violence and the sex, there would be nothing. You see, we all love mob stories. And frankly, it's hard to admit it, but America is fascinated with gangsters. Whether it was Marlon Brando in The Godfather or James Gandolfini in The Sopranos as Tony Soprano, or it was Al Pacino playing a mobster, or it was the other fellow whose name I really do forget for the moment. I'm blocking it out right now. You know, the one who's always wanting to punch Bush in the face. I don't know his name. I forgot it. I used to like him as an actor. But we all loved him. I know, I was kidding. The other guy. But the thing is that universally true that people somehow are attracted to movies about gangsters. And the question is why? And it's not about the money, it's about the freedoms that we see gangsters enjoying. They seem much freer than the average man. And they also seem to get vengeance more readily than the average man. We are all constrained in our vengeance. We all know if we lift a finger against anyone, the law comes down on us like a ton of bricks. And yet there are times that we wish to God we knew a Godfather. You don't even have to call me and tell me it's true because I know it's true. How many times have you been wronged in your life by a lawyer in a court case that you know was rigged against you, your house stolen from you, your pride stolen from you, your children stolen from you? How many times did you wish that you knew someone like the Marlon Brando Godfather character who you can go to and say, Don, do this, Don, do that? So that's why we're fascinated by mob stories and mobsters. It's very easy to glorify criminals, which this society does through the media, which is why we love to hate the media. We watch the movies about criminals. Somehow we live through it, and then we go out of the movie theater or leave the TV room, and we live in the real world where this devastation occurs. It's very, very difficult to tell you that we must not glorify criminality at any time. On the other side of that line are the police, the detectives, who prevent this from spreading even further in the United States of America. People you may not even know interdicting drugs, stopping the poison from spreading. We already have an opioid crisis now. Remember I covered the family, the Sackler family that controls OxyContin? Remember that story? I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I said something in passing that should not be ignored today. I said, and you thought that the Crips and the Bloods were the most dangerous drug dealers in America. Remember I said that? You know that the major pharmaceutical companies are probably more dangerous than the cartels in terms of what they do to the society, in terms of their marketing, in terms of the poisoning of this country. This is not to say that all drugs are poison and that all medicines are not great, are harmful. I didn't say that. But when you see a single family controlling OxyContin and the devastation that this drug OxyContin has that continues to occur, you have to look beyond the criminal cartels. And then you ask yourself, they're on the boards of every museum in the world. So how different is it then than the overt murderous drug dealers to those who own the pharmaceutical companies, for example, that peddle these dangerous drugs? These are questions that many of us who think are asking. And then you ask yourself, why does the government do nothing about it? When Donald Trump came to power, one of the things he said he would do was do everything he could to stop the opioid epidemic. Remember, he went up to New Hampshire where it's devastated one community after another? I see a lot of MS-13 gang members being rounded up. I don't see any people in white shirts and ties being taken out of glass buildings in New Haven, Connecticut, for example. Say glass buildings. I'm using a metaphor, a pharmaceutical company. So what do you do in a situation like this? You try to keep yourself away from it. You try to keep your kids away from it. You try to get your kids involved with sports. You try to tell them that drugs are a road to hell and death. And will you be successful? Maybe. Who knows if you're lucky. Is there any single answer that gives you the answer? No, if I had it, I would put it in the bottle and sell it to you. I don't have an answer. I know that sports generally will keep a child away from drugs. Generally. That works. Not always. Sometimes doesn't. I get it. But you got to give children something, some other outlet. And you can't glorify that life. Ask the black guys who are reformed gangbangers who are in these communities around America trying to save the next generation from going down that road. Ask them what they have to do to keep the kids away from that very attractive life where the guy who's selling that poison has the big car and all the girls. What do you think a little boy 10 years old is going to think about them when he sees his father breaking his, if he still has a father at home, or his mother, more likely, going to 2 jobs or 3 jobs? What is he going to think? In order to make his mommy happy, he's going to have to become like those bad gangsters down the street. It's a very tough world that we're living in, particularly for those in those communities. You get it? But, so I was going to do that today, which is why is America fascinated with gangsters? Then I was going to tell you that plague is back. Its locus right now is Madagascar, and as a result of open borders, boys and girls, infected people from Madagascar are spreading pneumonic plague in Africa. Now, if you remember the Black Plague, and that's not a term about race, it's a term about disease, if you read history, it wiped out a good portion of the Earth's population. It could happen again. God is mad. God is very mad. He tries different diseases every few decades to see if he can cull the herd. This is back. Plague is back. And with the liberal open border policy, he just might win this time. So, you can expect some plague in your neighborhood in the very near future as a result of the open borders. I read a terrible story about a lawyer, Kansas City attorney, shot dead on his porch as a man he recently defeated in court is tied to the case. I said, what? You see, they saw a white Chevrolet outside the lawyer's house after he was shot, and it was registered to a man named David Jungerman, who had recently lost a lawsuit to this lawyer. Jungerman is 79 years old, and he's not yet been named as a suspect. However, here's something you should know. The slain lawyer worked at the Fowler Pickett Eisenmenger law firm in Kansas, and they represented one of the 2 homeless men that this old homeowner, Jungerman, shot on his property in 2012. So in other words, this guy Jungerman comes out with a gun. Homeless guys are on his lawn. He's threatened by them. He shoots them. They're stealing copper from his property. They set off his alarm. The old man runs out, shoots them with an AK-47, and one of the homeless bum's legs are amputated because of the shooting. So the bum gets a law firm and sues the homeowner, winning $5.75 million against the old man. And what happened was this last Tuesday, a Jackson County, Missouri court served the old man an order that all of his real estate be seized to start paying off the debt to the bum and to his lawyer. So the lawyer, the innocent lawyer, Pickett, was sitting on his porch about 8 a.m. Monday morning, having just dropped off his 2 sons at their nearby school, cops told the Kansas City Star. And his wife, a doctor, heard a noise, ran outside, and found the lawyer shot. And that's the story of a Kansas City attorney shot dead on his porch as a man he recently defeated in court is tied to the case. Again, it ties in a little bit to why is America fascinated with gangsters. I don't believe the government is strong enough to prevent the revolution that is emerging. They have stolen the truth. They have stolen the universities. They've stolen the church. They've stolen the family. They've stolen our dignity. They've stolen our honor. What's next? What is next? The Tsar had power and no laws. The communists had laws and no power. Where are we today? This is the Savage Nation. Be here.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Okay, here's how I want to close the show. Donald Trump says the press makes me look more uncivil than I am, and I want you to listen very carefully to what he says, and you'll understand why the minute we finish with this sound by Jim. Fire away.
Well, I think the press makes me more uncivil than I am. You know, people don't understand. I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. The fact is, I really believe the press creates a different image of Donald Trump than the real person. I think it's always okay when somebody says something about you that's false. I think it's always okay to counterpunch or to fight back.
He's 1,000% right. So the press has turned him into more evil than Kim Jong-un, more evil than Rasputin, more evil than Hitler, more evil than Stalin. It's relentless. They're feeding on each other's lies. They're believing their own lies. They are, in essence, engaging in a mass hysteria. I know, because I have experienced the same thing for these last 20-some-odd years that I am on the radio. They try to dismiss me as a right-winger or as a white nationalist when they are 1,000% wrong. That's number one. They try to dismiss my many years of work as a conservationist, my many, many years of work in nutrition when the field was hardly known, my many, many years working in alternative medicine, whether it be in herbal medicine, homeopathy, or nutrition itself. That doesn't exist because why? Because I am not politically acceptable to the solentarists of the left who think that they control everyone's mind. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they control your mind, but they don't control the reality of Michael Savage. I am far more diverse or versatile than you would believe, number one. And tell me how the book God, Faith, and Reason fits into the nice little box that they have created for me. The stereotype, the right-winger, the white nationalist, the fascist. None of those terms are real. But once they create them, and once they start to eat them and digest them, they turn it into a reality of its own. And then they start to believe the lies. And as they have done to me and others in the media, in order to smear us, by typecasting us, they are doing to President Trump. And they're doing it to him not because he is any of the villainous things they say, but because he is undoing their agenda that they thought they had wrapped up like taking of the Bronx 1, 2, 3. No, they're not getting Pelham 1, 2, 3. They almost had it all sewn up after almost a decade of lies, deceit, and stereotypes. Obama almost wrapped up the whole world in a neat bundle and put it in his back pocket. And she was going to be the one who finished off the bull of America. And then along came Donald Trump. And now you know the rest of the story. He's 1,000% right. Watch out for stereotypes, because you may be next.
Savage.